1. Ring Camera Nursery Hacks. December 2019. A series of credential stuffing attacks allowed hackers to access Ring security cameras across the United States by using passwords that had been leaked from breaches on completely different websites. Families who thought they were protecting their homes discovered that strangers were watching them instead. In Mississippi, a hacker accessed a camera installed in an 8-year-old girl's bedroom. The intruder played the song Tiptoe Through the Tulips through the speaker and spoke directly to the child, claiming to be Santa Claus. The girl's father heard her screaming and ran into the room to find the camera moving on its own, tracking their movements. Ring confirmed that the attacks were successful because users had not enabled two-factor authentication and were reusing passwords across multiple platforms. The incident revealed a critical vulnerability in how people secure their connected devices. No software flaw was exploited. The hackers simply logged in using credentials that already existed elsewhere. Ring responded by making two-factor authentication mandatory for all new accounts and sent warnings to existing users, but thousands of cameras had already been compromised by the time the company took action. 2. The Vacuum Spy Drone. February 2026. Security researchers discovered a critical vulnerability in the DJI Romo line of robot vacuums that allowed attackers to bypass local encryption and seize manual control of the devices. These vacuums were equipped with high-definition cameras and microphones designed for navigation and voice commands. An attacker could connect to the vacuum remotely and use a standard Xbox controller to drive it through the home like a remote-controlled car. Once in control, the hacker could access the live camera feed and microphone, turning the vacuum into a mobile surveillance device that could move between rooms, peek under furniture, and record private conversations. The vulnerability existed because the vacuum's firmware did not properly authenticate control commands. Any device on the same network could send movement instructions without verification. DJI issued an emergency firmware update and disabled remote access features until the encryption protocols could be rebuilt. The incident highlighted a disturbing reality. When household appliances gain mobility, cameras, and microphones, a single software bug transforms them from conveniences into literal stalkers that can follow you from room to room. 3. The Pacemaker Hack, August 2013. Security researcher Barnaby Jack demonstrated that he could wirelessly interrogate a pacemaker from 50 feet away and take complete control of the device. Jack, who had previously exposed vulnerabilities in ATMs and insulin pumps, showed that he could identify the make and model of any pacemaker within range, then send commands to alter its behavior. In the most disturbing demonstration, he proved that a hacker could remotely instruct the pacemaker to deliver an 800-volt shock directly to the patient's heart. The attack would be fatal and virtually untraceable. The vulnerability existed because early generation connected pacemakers used unencrypted wireless communication protocols and had no authentication requirements for incoming commands. Any device broadcasting on the correct frequency could issue instructions. Jack presented his findings to manufacturers privately before going public, leading to a complete overhaul of medical device security standards. The FDA issued new guidance requiring encryption and authentication for all wireless medical implants. Jack proved that connected life-saving equipment could be weaponized remotely, forcing the entire industry to treat software vulnerabilities as potential murder weapons rather than mere technical problems. 4. The EV Charger Fire. August 2020. Critical flaws were found in popular home electric vehicle charging stations manufactured by Wallbox and Project EV. The chargers were designed with load balancing software that monitored power consumption and adjusted charging speeds to prevent circuit overloads. Researchers discovered they could hijack this software remotely and force the units to pull maximum current, while simultaneously disabling all overheating sensors and safety cutoffs. In the attack simulation, the charger's internal temperature sensors were overridden, and the current limiter was disabled. The device pulled enough power to overheat the internal wiring to the point of combustion. In a real-world scenario, this could ignite insulation, spread to the vehicle, and potentially burn down the garage and attached home. The manufacturers released emergency patches disabling remote control features until proper authentication could be implemented. The incident demonstrated how digital manipulation of load management systems could bypass every physical safety mechanism and turn a parked car into a fiery weapon inside someone's garage. 5. Burglar's Treasure Map. January 2025. Thieves discovered an unprotected cloud database belonging to Mars Hydro, a leading manufacturer of smart hydroponic and indoor gardening systems. The database contained 2.7 billion records, including precise GPS coordinates and Wi-Fi credentials for millions of users worldwide. The leak essentially created a treasure map for criminals. Because the systems were designed for high-end indoor gardening, the data revealed exactly which homes contained thousands of dollars worth of specialized electronic equipment. Burglars did not need to scout neighborhoods. They could simply filter the database for the most expensive setups and use the leaked Wi-Fi passwords to disable home security cameras before even arriving at the property. The vulnerability XI stead because the company had failed to implement basic password protection or encryption on its backend server, leaving the entire dataset accessible to anyone with a web browser. Mars Hydro eventually secured the database, but the data had already been mirrored on dark web forums. The incident highlighted a terrifying new dimension of digital risk. When smart devices collect precise location data, a single oversight transforms your private inventory into a public shopping list for tech-savvy thieves. 6. Smart TV Anonymous, January 2025. Investigators discovered that over 10 million Android TV boxes, digital projectors, and automotive infotainment systems had been shipped globally with pre-installed malware embedded directly into the firmware. The affected devices were primarily budget models sold through third-party marketplaces and resellers. Once connected to home networks, the devices activated silently and enrolled themselves into a residential proxy botnet. The malware turned each device into a relay node, routing cybercriminal traffic through the owner's IP address. This made it appear as though illegal activity, fraud attempts, and cyber attacks were originating from innocent households. Law enforcement traced criminal activity back to residential addresses, only to discover the homeowners had no knowledge their devices were being used as digital disguises. The malware was particularly difficult to detect because it operated at the firmware level, below the reach of standard antivirus software. Even factory resets failed to remove it. Authorities issued advisories warning consumers to avoid suspiciously cheap electronics from unverified manufacturers. 7. The Casino Fish Tank Heist, April 2017. Hackers breached a North American casino and exfiltrated 10 gigabytes of sensitive data, including high roller databases and internal financial records. The entry point was not a server, workstation, or network router. It was a smart thermometer installed in the main lobby aquarium. The thermometer was connected to the casino's main network to allow remote monitoring of water temperature. Attackers identified the device, exploited its weak default credentials, and used it as a foothold to move laterally through the network. Once inside, they located the database servers and began extracting files. The data was sent back out through the same fish tank thermometer to avoid detection by perimeter security systems, giving attackers everything they needed to gain an advantage on casino slot machines. The casino implemented strict network segmentation policies and removed all IoT devices from the primary infrastructure. The total losses are unknown, but it is predicted that this single fish tank thermometer cost over 6 figures in losses before the breach was sealed. 8. The Alexa laughing bug, March 2018. Amazon Echo users worldwide reported that their devices were emitting unprompted, eerie laughter at random times, often late at night. The phenomenon occurred without wake word activation and happened even when the devices were idle. Amazon investigated and determined that the devices were misinterpreting certain phrases as the command, Alexa, laugh. The company disabled that specific command entirely and replaced it with, Alexa, can you laugh, which required more deliberate phrasing. They also reduced the sensitivity of the wake word detection to prevent false activations. While Amazon maintained the issue was purely technical, the psychological impact on users was significant. Many reported feeling unsafe in their own homes, uncertain whether the device was malfunctioning or being controlled remotely. The incident exposed the unsettling reality of living with always listening devices that can exhibit seemingly autonomous behavior.